Hey YouTube fans, I'm back again. I know I say that a lot. Probably gonna say it a few more times in the future, so don't expect any regularity out of me. That's just not how I am as a person, as you guys know. No, we're going to be trying to stick to a little bit better schedule here pretty soon. Right now I'm out testing my buddy Dylan's car. Had some issues shutting down on him. I have a bunch of updates on Scooter as well as the Brazilian car, both of which are almost done. So, I'll see you guys here in just a little bit. Alright, well, we're into a solid week of driving this one around, just little bits at a time. So now I'm venturing out into bigger areas of town with it. It's probably going to make a couple long trips today, so as of right now, it just starts and does its thing. The exhaust is rattling on the floor, but it so far has not left me stranded anywhere. Knock on wood. So I got to run and get a new vacuum pump and some Freon. I'm going to see if I can get the AC working for him. So a little bit more on the Brazilian car here later today. Well, I just keep chipping away at it and it's getting better. I still haven't put the plugs in it. But I'm not to the floor this time. Now I'm just barely towing the throttle and it's running right up there. And it downshifts now. It's breaking up really bad. It's got two really bad plugs. I'm going up to the parts store right now to go get the air filter for it. Grab myself some drinks. Then we'll go back, finish tuning this thing up. See if I can get this air conditioning working. Something I've often overlooked when air conditioning is concerned is the Schrader valves. Now, this one has been serviced to 134A at one point, but it was a long time ago, and these fittings have had, I'm sure, multiple charges on them, and the O-ring looks like shit. But those Schrader valves can be an absolute pain in the butt because they rarely seal and they're cheap. So I'm just going to go ahead and replace them while I'm here, and then we'll start over with a new retrofit kit. Needless to say, this was probably part of the high side leak. There's a lot of metal crap in there. This system needs flushed. The O-ring was definitely shot, and there's nothing about this that screams I was going to seal up. So good thing we're changing them. Purring like a kitten, again. Temporary ignition coil just laying there. Just plugged in. I gotta get the later pigtail from the Hope store. And, so this one's gonna prove its worth until I go to Airway Drive down near Dayton and pick up the plug. Then I can put the other coil on and I can show you what they did. Matter of fact, actually, I got one up here. I'm not digging it out from underneath the intake right now, but I can at least demonstrate what it did. So, these pins right here, somewhere down inside the plastic on the power side, it broke off on this side, which is the side that goes to the distributor, and your 12 volts come in on this side from the car. And so initially I pulled it off on the side of the road and I stuck those two wires together and shoved it down on this post, and I got it to start. We revved it up, and as soon as I revved it up, this one decided it was going to pull out. You can literally grab them and pull them in and out of the plastic. So when I get it off the car, I'll do another little video of it. But right now the temporary one's on there and it's running. So, ha! Alright. There's plug one. Further proof an HEI ignition system will fire absolutely anything. There is nothing left of that. Cylinder 1. Alright, here's cylinder 2. Well, neither one of these seated all the way. I had already tightened up cylinder 3. Jesus, man. I think these are original. They're green writing AC Delcos. This thing only having 80,000 miles on it. I bet you these are original. There's cylinder 3. And there's cylinder 4. Come on, focus. There we go. If anything, it was consistent. Alright, well, so Dylan's car is Dylan's car. At this moment, we are waiting on him to bring me a carburetor, and then all should be good. So he's going to get the air conditioning fixed on his end when time allows, but we're going to get it the carburetor straightened around here when he gets here with it. So without further ado, let me show you where I'm at with the Brazilian car at the moment. Alright, so it is in there one more time, because this is the final time it goes in there, since everything is now here, and I'll know where the exhaust is going to route around the steering shaft. I'll know where headers are going to have to be modified, and where further things are going to need just a little bit of trimming to make everything happy. But as of right now, the passenger side header, one tube hits here, one tube hits here, and the other tube hits right here. So it's a little tight over here. I'm gonna have to figure out something to do with this. It may be a dimple on the inside, and then a little bit of creative bending. But we'll get it in there. One way or another, we'll get it in there. I have a lot of transmission stuff, or a lot of transmission tunnel stuff to do there yet. But again, it lines up. I mean, it's right up against the floor right there, so I've got to fold out that floor a little bit, and then once I've got it where I need it, this will end up with a little bit more of a contour right there. I'm gonna fold it around a round stock, and then I'll fill all this in. But at the moment, it's definitely driver's side shifted. The driver definitely got a lot more room in the Brazilian car than the North American car, but that also presents a challenge right here. As I said before, I'm going to have to remove this and move it over just a little bit so I can clear the drive shaft through here. But no, it should be pretty much be ready to finalize these mounts. There's the new gauges and how they're going to fit in there in the console. Be pretty nice. The steering column also is going to be a little bit straighter than it was to begin with, so that'll be a little bit interesting. I think I definitely have this big ass radiator getting ready to go in there, and it does fit all the way down in there. I just need to get past the neck, and then serviceability later, or pulling the fan and stuff out of there. There's plenty of room in there for a fan. Once I get this trimmed out and I get it down in there where I'm actually going to finalize the mounts and start welding the core support back where I've trimmed it, then you'll see how that all fits in there with the shroud and the fan and the hoses. Driver's side is damn tight on this tube. It's sitting on the cross member nut down there, because of course it is. Not anything I can't take care of. A little dimple in that, and that takes care of that. Steering shaft, go in the car on the driver's side here, because you can see right through to it. Yeah, that sits a lot higher over there than it's going to, because I have to switch racks, and the rack and pinion I'm putting in here has a much lower profile setup, which will drop down and just clear the header tube that you probably can't quite see there. Not sure if I can zoom in and see where it dumps. If I can get to this side of this side over here, if I can get to that side of the steering shaft and back, that'll work out. And again, this might still come over 1/4 of an inch. The pedal is just sitting here at the moment. It still has a spot, but I'm going to have to rebend the rod a little bit to get around things. Oh, okay. So Lots of transmission tunnel work gotta happen yet. Not as much as it sounds, but I have to make sure that this transmission stays centered in there, and the only way to do that is to make the room on the driver's side. So that's where we're at with that right at the moment. Aside from that little bit of the oil pan that drops down below the cross member, everything else sits up underneath there. And it's all well below the hood line, all the way to the front of the car. All of that sits underneath there. So I'll have no problem with throttle body. That's the other reason why this is going to have to get a little more clearance. I need to get an elbow in here so I can get the mass airflow sensor sitting here, so I can get the elbow back in here, bring it down, and we're going to feed cold air from right in here. So be it from right here, or I build a box that takes the cold air from right here into core support. Either way, it'll be in that corner. Now, one thing I may have to do as well is find a different thermostat housing for this particular setup. It might need to point down. I have some flexible setups that'll make universal hoses really easy to make, but I have a real need for that to point down more. So mostly because it's got to go down and kind of back and then forward into the radiator. Those should be fine, be it I have to loop them or this car gets a heater core later. If it gets a heater core later, obviously the lines can then be brought up, or actually probably over this way on the other side of the exhaust and then up into the heater box, but there will be room for them. You can actually see quite a bit of the painted engine in here. You actually see quite a bit more of the painted engine in here than I thought you were going to, so I'm kind of glad I painted it. But at the same time, it is quite hidden. So it was not all for naught, though. The 105 amp alternator does clear the frame rail on the Brazilian car. It will not clear the frame rail on the North American car. There will have to be a notch made right here. I'm going to trim that away because it's not needed and it's going to be in the way. And then of course I have to finish boxing this in after I make a little bit more clearance down in that area. So we're there. I'm about to put the motor mounts in there and make them permanent. I got to get a little bit more of the transmission lined up. Again, I have the center line set up here. Transmission does not quite line up with the end of that, and there is where's the engine? You can't see it in the photo, but the engine is one way or the other on the tape, so it's not quite centered up. It's centered up here, but I'm going to keep plugging away on it. Just a little further clearancing that I think we're going to end up doing is we're going to go ahead and remove a little bit more out on the edges, and then when I finish this up, there'll be a rounded edge welded and final or metal finished around this. But the starter pocket on the bell housing, it might get a little grind work. That little bit of stanchion right in there might also get a little bit of a concave spot welded into it too. I don't want to heat it and beat it in. I would rather just cut it and then flip the metal around and weld it back in. But I think that's going to be it. I think the rest of this is going to be rebuilding the firewall from here. Obviously this area needs to kind of bend in because it's pointed right at the engine at the moment, and I need to get it to contour in just a little bit so I can meet up with that piece that I cut out. And then there'll be a hole here, or right to, well, yeah, no, probably more inboard so I can keep it away from heat to pass the firewall grommet through for the, yeah, the wire harness. And it looks like I just need to make the templates What I'm probably going to do is make a template that allows me to cut what came with these mount kits, but I'm also going to build a piece that welds to both of them and sits on top of this frame rail as well, so I can weld it all the way in so it's solid. I'll do that on both sides. The biggest hurdle I think here is going to be this exhaust. I can definitely get it through there. I know I'll be able to get it through there. It's going to be super tight, but I know I can get it through there. In which case, it's going to make it's going to make making that Y pipe very easy. The trouble is just going to be that space and the angle of this header just really don't work out for this well at all. I can't imagine that header works out at all for the North American car. So, and then I'm going to get this closer to the core support. I actually want this whole edge flush with the structural part back in here, which gives me almost 2 fingers. That's more room this way. Maybe I can get an elbow on this to bring it around. Or what's going to end up happening is I'm going to have to modify this. Likely, what I'll end up doing is I'll be able to cut it off right here and then slide the hose up on this area, which will then give me an area to make a nice 90. Either way, there is definitely going to be some room issues here, but a fan is not going to be a problem. 2 fans actually wouldn't be a problem, but I think one's going to be plenty. And I've already located a thermostat housing that's going to fix my problem here. There's a few of them that are cheap, that are billet, like 30 or 40 bucks now, that are clockable with an O-ring and such. So good to go there. Now, as far as master cylinder placement goes, it's a little hard to see down in here. Let me see if I can get some light on this situation. There we go. Okay, so if I was to line this up straight, let's say we put my master cylinder adapter on the firewall, and we lined it up straight. It puts this just underneath the cover, way far away from the fender well, but just under the cover and literally barely a finger's distance from the header tube down there. If I offset this to where my adapter I'm making for this car can offset it, where the pedal or the rod can be on the other side of the pedal, since we can do that on this car, I still have a generous amount of room here for a fitting and a brake line, both front and rear. And I'm a mile away from the header at that point, and it's out here in a serviceable position. Well, after slamming this thing completely on the ground a couple different times, getting everything in here how I wanted it, but then kind of not how I wanted it, but now kind of how I want it. It makes sense when you do this all the time. You will do this a million times until it is perfect. It's a little higher in the front than I really wanted, so here's my compromise. But be it that it is higher than I wanted, it is much below, much below the hood line. So much below the hood line that I am not at all worried about that hitting. And so this area being clearanced is perfect for that elbow. As you can see, it's not, it's going to be right above the radiator. So I still have to get my clearance gained here, but everything else seems to have just magically cleared how I wanted it initially. This header doesn't even touch anymore, which is crazy. It doesn't touch at all. I don't know if that's picking up on the video, but so I'm going to shove that one in there and see where we're at. And if that's the case, this is literally as low as the car can physically go. And the drivetrain has got this nice downhill angle that a couple degrees in it that I want, which will help out with drive shaft placement here. Getting that angle and the pinion angle right, keeping the shakes out of it. But besides all that, it also fits the tunnel just a little bit better than I had also initially planned for, so I'm going to have plenty of room. I still am going to have issues with this. I'll have to do something there, but That actually gives me a lot of room between the top of the tunnel and the top of the transmission down in there. Oh, this is good stuff. Man, this is good stuff. Oh, there's so much more room down there for steering shaft now. Oh, that's winning. That is winning. This is why you do this a billion times until you get it how you want it. It's just in there. It's just in there, damn near perfect. All right, well, I'm gonna quit babbling and stop admiring the work and just get on with the rest of this work. So I'm gonna see if that header will fit. Okay, well, I have made the decision. It's gonna happen. That exhaust header right there is getting cut up and modified, and the placement of the dump is perfect right now. It just clears the motor mount plate right there. Gives me room to get the V-band around, and it dumps down in kind of a favorable location. However, you notice the header's not even close to touching the head. So, if I cut the collector off at the bottom of these tubes, all 4 of those tubes right there, just flat, this tube and this tube will end up where this tube and this tube are at right here. If I take the collector and I turn it 180 degrees around, that leaves me 2 open holes there. I then just have to shorten these tubes and run them into that side of the collector. It's going to be a lot of work, but it'll give me basically the same architecture with 2 shorter, slightly shorter center tubes, and still give me the V-band connection down there. And then it'll fit the car. And I think what we're going to end up doing is ECU will be mounted in the passenger side up underneath the dashboard. And typical deal, the data link will be on the driver's side where you can be just plugged in underneath the dashboard and gotten to with a scanner. And hell, yeah, I think the exhaust is going to be the hardest fit after this. So I'm going to keep plugging away on it. I get a little bit here and there every day, and been waiting on all the parts to finally get here, because there was a lot of stuff that was not going to play right. And I'm glad that I waited to finalize the motor mounts until everything got here, because there is just a little bit more work that needs to be done to get it in here perfectly the way I want it. And the way I want to be able to be, the way I want this is, if it pulls in here, any Joe Schmo can just yank the engine out of it without frustration and put it back in. So everything has to have a place. Everything has to have a little bit of room. But we're there. We're almost there. It's real close. Scooter is sitting here in the background, ready for finalization on the motor mounts. And then exhaust. The pipes are on their way. The muffler was already chosen, and it's already here, and the headers are next to be finished. So, real soon. So, couple other things that I got going in the meantime was I've since discovered that my crank pulley is broken on this. Of course, 2 days before my Chevette meet, which, by the way, that's coming up this weekend, 12th through the 14th, and I'll put a description of it in the, or I'll put the information for it in the description of this video. And then, of course, we'll be filming that too. And then the old beater got running again. I now have this thing running on its own power. It has 0 brakes on it right now, so I can't stop it, which makes fun moving in and out of the driveway. But at the moment, it has its gasser side pipe and its attitude sitting here. all it's got. But it runs. I can jump right in it, fire it up, and put the gear in it. Just moves. Kind of nice being able to move that on its own. Not easy to push these cars all the time. So that's it for right now. And it's been a minute since I've posted a YouTube video, and every time I do, it's, hey, I'm back. Again, like I said at the beginning of the video, that's just kind of the person I am. That's just the way things run around here. Inconsistency as far as filming goes, because it's not something that's necessarily on the top of the list of things to do, because we have other things here to get done first before I have time to pick this up. So, but I'm going to be a little better about doing that in the future. So there'll probably be some more videos cranking out real fast, real soon. Definitely on these two here in the garage. And then again, you're going to be looking for the Chevette meet coming up here just a couple days. So in the meantime, I will see you guys on the flip side. Keep that shiny side up.